I was talking to one of our guests during the coffee break, and we were saying that BIM appears to be, or is in fact, more than just a tool or a solution for the construction industry. What it really represents is an entirely new way of working and a lot more collaboration required in how a building actually gets put together. And that can present its own set of challenges. I think we'll be getting to that topic during the course of our panel discussion. But now I would like to invite our panelists back to join me. So we already met Mr. Sven Sieben and Mr. Jan Lodewijks. So gentlemen, come onto the stage, and joining them is Johannes Settel. He's the technical sales manager at BIM Object. We kept referring to your company during the presentation. So gentlemen, take your seats. I will sort of wedge myself here in the middle. And well, we already heard initially about some of the benefits of BIM, but what I would also like to get to during our talk is about the growth of BIM, what's standing in the way of that, or what can we do to foster it. Again, this topic of collaboration and whether it also requires a completely new mindset in how people work together on construction projects. Of course, we have to be pragmatic, so we need to talk a little bit about the challenges and maybe even the risks. And also, as always, we would like to look into the future and discuss what kind of a future can we expect from BIM. So why don't we just start with that question about collaboration? So how is BIM changing construction methodologies and management and how people need to work together? So who would like to tackle that question?
Who's expert in that
Okay, so
question?
So maybe you have your 5-minute answer now.
I think that you can compare the introduction of BIM in our industry best with the invention of the chainsaw. It's something completely new. It's very different. It didn't make the axe obsolete. We still have axes nowadays. But in many cases, the chainsaw is without alternative. I wouldn't recommend starting a wood chopping company without chainsaws. And what we see is that we need a different infrastructure. We suddenly need petrol or electricity. We're fundamentally changing the way of working. If someone would have said when the chainsaw was invented, well, this chainsaw doesn't swing very well, we could have all agreed, but it wouldn't have been the point. When we introduce new technologies, new issues into an industry, we shouldn't look from it from a point of view, how do we work today, and what is our process today? We should look at it from a point of view, what is my objective today, and how can I reach this objective or achieve this goal with this new tool through different means. And I think this will mean that we will fundamentally change how we work in construction because we have new tools. We are offered new ways of working, and thereby create different opportunities for us. And BIM is something that focuses on collaboration, on exchanging information, because we see that the issue with the old ways, that are in our fragmented industry, we don't get the information across properly, and the people that are deciding on which product to use are not necessarily informed sufficiently or at the right moment in time about the options of materials and about the right quantities and properties of these materials. And I think this BIM, the main thing that BIM will change is that it will enforce us to collaborate tighter, but more importantly, completely refigure the way we approach construction. And people say it's a paradigm shift. Yes, it definitely is.
Johannes, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, when it comes to building information modeling, so everybody is telling about the importance of collaboration right now. In the conventional way, it might be a bit that the participants of the process actually work more against each other, because there are points where they can where they make mistakes, and when it comes to building information modeling and the collaboration, they work with each other for a good end result, for a good end result like a building, and they don't work that hard against each other. This is actually the main importance I see with building information modeling and the collaboration on that. The thing is that the collaboration is a bit hard because when it comes to standards or unique or file formats things or exchange formats. We have those file formats called IFC standards or IFC. I think this is the most heavy barrier. I guess this is a challenge actually we have to face, and we have to clear up in the next years. But might be a problem with the software vendors, because the software vendors are not really interested in having a simple file format where everybody can exchange, because then they make their unique selling USPs actually down. I'm not sure about that, but it will come in the next years, I guess.
All right, so one of the barriers to collaboration could be still a lack of standards when it comes to BIM, but what we were also talking about during the break with one of our guests was perhaps even a cultural mentality question when it comes to collaboration. As a strategic consultancy, how do you see sort of a readiness or a lack of readiness when it comes to just the culture of collaboration standing in the way, and what would be your recommendations for overcoming that?
I believe it's one of the biggest hurdles nowadays. Software-wise, everything is available. Data standard-wise, yes, we don't have one standard, but there are many different standards, and all of them somehow work. And the people who are using it always find a workaround. Culture, I believe, is the biggest hurdle, because we need to change our mindset, and changing mindsets is not so easy. We just had the discussion during the break. The typical architect, one of my colleagues is one, does it since 20 years, learned at ETH here in Zurich. He does it in the same way, and is not willing to change it, because it has always worked. In this situation, you need to change not only the architect, the planner, you need to change the craftsman at the site, you need to change the suppliers, and all of them have to change a process where no standard template is available, how this process should look like going forward. So the biggest job we are doing as strategy consulting companies is not developing strategies with our clients, it's helping them changing the mindset of their people in our digital hubs, in those spaces that we have created to open the minds of the people, to make them aware that BIM or digitalization is not only about a better way of collaborating, but it enables completely new business models, because suddenly everything is available in a digitalized format with ones and zeros, and based on that you can optimize material flows, you can optimize logistics, you can optimize planning. You know much better how much demand your customers will ask from you in 6 months from now, because planning is done much earlier, and so you can optimize your own supply chain, for example, and you can build new business models around these data that you have available about the usage of your materials, and you can help your customers optimize this usage, for example, over the whole lifetime of a building. And you need to change the mindset of each single employee in a company, not only the CEOs and business developers, but also the sales guys and product developers, to be able to imagine what is possible going forward so that they can execute it in reality. And that's why cultural mindset change is the biggest hurdle.
Maybe I can add on that with a very practical example. If we try to get BIM on site, first people are a bit reluctant and saying, I'm not sure whether we want to do this. Then they see, now I just click on an object and I know the quantity, so I can order my materials faster. And they're very happy about this, but they are skeptical. So the first thing they do is they click on the object, and then they take the drawing and make a hand calculation and see, okay, this is really the same thing, right? But once the skepticism is done with, and they get really excited, there's this phase of, yes, we're going to do it, and things are better now, and it's easier. And until they realize, this is very, very transparent. And actually, someone can see now whether I ordered more materials than I needed. And then we told them, well, would you put in your pocket the materials? I mean, it's not like they vanish just because you didn't order the correct amount. So in implementing BIM on a project, you first get this hesitance. This is something new. We have to change. Do we really want it? Then they start understanding it. They quality check. They make sure that the information is correct. Then they get excited, very excited. Then their expectation is way more sometimes than we can offer. And we say, no, there's limitations to what this thing can do. And then suddenly they get scared about transparency and everything is available. That also creates a different culture. Normally we say, okay, we have to hide some things from the client. Actually, the client knows that. So if we just show them and say, we know there's a problem, the client gets way more relaxed and says, okay, there's a problem, you know it, so probably you're going to fix it. You're the best guy to do that. That's why I hired you. So yes, it's extremely true. The cultural thing is the main part of introducing BIM, and it's not something that you start, you convince, and you're done. It's something that you have to redo every time for every phase, and the more people learn about it, the more challenges arise in this.
Well, something you said earlier was that you shouldn't wait for the standards to be implemented. You should start using BIM anyway, even as these standards are still being worked out. And yet, if there were standards, maybe there would be fewer people who would be reluctant. I think people like standards; they know what to expect. So maybe, Johannes, this is a question for you. Like, where do you see the best way to push for standards being implemented? Is this something that governments need to get on top on? Do we need to see some sort of regulations or laws? Or would you say this is more something for like construction associations or some sort of initiatives to push for new standards in BIM?
Quite interesting thing. When I was on a BIM event last week in Sweden, and when you see there other countries outside of Germany, how they work with BIM already, they are just, they make like a bit trial and error, right? And the Germans waiting for standards, and I don't know, but they wait for getting from the government kind of a standard and how to do that. I guess it might be a mixture of more, multiple things. Like we have customers on our portal which are going the BIM way. I would say since 2 or 3 years, and they were the first mover on in that point or in their field, and they start to create kind of a standard for their branch or for their part of the industry. So I guess there's maybe a mixture where the standards can be pushed from, and I guess actually you cannot establish a standard because you think now we need a standard. I think a standard is a standard because it's the best way to do it. So I think I totally agree that we need standards, but it's hard to establish any standards from zero, right? So I guess it's a mixture from many factors.
And how do you see that, Sven, also the strategic consultancy? Where should these standards be coming from? Governments, associations, construction initiatives?
We usually have a liberal mindset, but due to the very fragmented situation that we have in the construction material industry, and Jan gave the example of the automotive industry where you have like 5, 6, 7 large OEMs and maybe 15, 20 large global suppliers that were able to set standards like a bus standard, for example. That worked. It doesn't work in the construction industry, I believe. That's why I believe it needs to be done by governmental institutions to a certain degree. This is what is happening now in Switzerland, for example, after some associations tried to do that, and some private initiatives driven by academics, by ETH, where you came yesterday, tried to do it, didn't really work. So the last exit is to use governmental regulation to a certain degree, which is usually not the most efficient way of doing things, but I don't really see an alternative.
All right, so perhaps the only way forward is to get governments involved. Something else that could also be a result of having standards is helping efficiency. I mean, you touched upon this as well, that one of the main advantages of BIM is getting some more efficiency in how construction is done. I was very surprised, I think we had it from a few presentations, how little efficiency has improved in construction over the last 100 years. I mean, for someone like me, I found that very, very surprising. And what I'd like to ask you now about is cost, because everybody cares about the bottom line and how much money they can save. Maybe you can tell us about the impact of BIM on material costs, how that will be affected. We'll start with you again.
A material cost as such is, I think, very difficult to say, because we're not trying to change the product as a focus. We're trying to change the process, how the product gets on site. There we had one of the project that I elaborated a bit more about, this Copenhagen Brugges project, where we had one site manager that tried to analyze the benefits of BIM from his point of view, and he said, well, I've been running construction for 20 years now, and this was really, really a fundamental change in how things worked on site. And he didn't do the BIM himself. He sent a project or a BIM manager on site who implemented BIM on that project. And first they were very skeptical of whether she would or would not help the project. But this older person who really had a standing on the project said, no, we really need to introduce that. So I think we need these kinds of people. And what he at the end said, so he evaluated all the clashes that we showed, those 5-digit number of clashes, and he said, well, probably we would have found 70% in the traditional way, and that's a high estimate. And he clustered those clashes then into different groups. He said, this is a clash that would have cost us 10,000 euro if we wouldn't have found it. This is a clash that would have cost us 100,000 euro. And based on that, he said, okay, well, in the end, if we take the total amount, then doing this in a certain way saved us a certain amount of money. And comparing that to the effort or manpower we put in, the extra investment we needed to create BIM on this project, every dollar we gave, we got $7 back. But I think what you need to understand is you need someone high up in the organization who supports this, who says this is a good idea. You need someone low in the organization who actually knows about it and can do it. And you need to understand on all levels that BIM is an investment. It's not a cost decision, it's an investment decision. You don't ask what does BIM cost, you ask what do I get out if I put money in BIM. And I think that's yeah.
And if I may add, there are obviously additional benefits to that as well. BIM gives you better transparency. BIM gives you an earlier planning transparency. We have a much better idea about demand of the future, so you can basically plan your own production as suppliers much better if you know what has to be delivered to a construction site in 6 months from now rather than in 4 weeks from now. And at the construction site, and I think we discussed that yesterday, Johannes, during dinner, you can obviously much better plan which material volumes you need, at which point in time you need to have these volumes, and can order them accordingly. You can optimize the construction sites, you can optimize logistics, you can optimize working capital at the end of the day, which is an important thing, currently not so important due to the low interest rates, but theoretically something we always obviously pay attention to in efficiency projects, where you can save a lot of money going forward if you have better planning information and if you optimize the volumes of materials that you are sourcing.
And
yes. Also, there is the possibility nobody cares about that when it comes to BIM. But if you do a quite perfect quantity takeoff of the model, you're able to be more sustainable on the construction site. You know, when I remember my time modelings. It was like I was doing quantity takeoff by 2D plans with my linear, the ruler, right? And afterwards, I did the quantity takeoff. I added 15% to the material just to have the whole thing on a safe side. With BIM, you are able to do the quantity takeoff quite precise, and on the building side, the material are not used. Wasted. They are not wasted on the building at the end. So the BIM is making the whole process and the whole building site more sustainable as well.
Well, what I do want to actually get a bit more detail on, our audience members are construction material producers, so with them in mind specifically, how would you convince construction material producers to get on board with BIM?
The thing is that building product manufacturers are, in a conventional way, they were more far away from the actual design process. So when it comes to BIM, the software vendors tell about all the participants on the building process, and mean architects and engineers. We at BIM Object, we are thinking all the participants on the building site are architects, engineers, HVAC planners, and of course the building manufacturers, building product manufacturers, because when you think of that, the goal of building information modeling is to provide a digital twin to the operator at the end. There has to be the information from all the product manufacturers in the model, into the model, because when you think about building information modeling to build the whole building life cycle with the model. So you have to be aware when it comes to destruction of the building, and maybe there were any toxic elements in the building. You want to know that actually. So I think the role of the building product manufacturers is coming closer to the design process as it was in the conventional way, and the product manufacturers are even closer to the architects right now than the earlier phase in the design process they will implement it.
Dan, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I think I completely agree, and maybe I can give a practical example of why it is important to bring your product early on into the process. If you compare it, we have, for example, the solar panels. They're very expensive and new, and we try to implement it in the construction industry because it allows us to be more sustainable. These solar panels have very rigid widths and or diameters, and the measurements of these solar panels need to be aligned with the design of the architect of the facade. And currently, our biggest problem isn't that we don't have a high quality product so that you don't make good products. The biggest problem is we don't have a proper way of implementing this product into the construction process, thinking how to install those so it gets on site. Giving the right people the right information about these products, so they incorporate it into their design and into their production. Because specifically with this product, the problem is the architect needs to create his facade in a certain way that it's aligned to the specific measurements of the solar panels that are available. The MEP guys or the electrical technician needs to make sure that the electricity generated by the solar panels can be connected to the electrical grid of the building. And structural analysis needs to know that the solar panels, the weight, the extra weight you put upon the facade, can be supported. And those are the three main issues where we get problems. And then later in the construction process, even if at the beginning people said we want, or the client said we want solar panels on the building, it is decided that we don't do it because we should change so much in the design, in the execution, that it becomes too cost too costly to put them there. So it's not the material cost that's killing the product, it's the process cost that's killing the product. I think this will, yeah.
Just want to add something when it comes to the why I say that the building product manufacturers are coming closer to the architects. When we're talking about BIM, we're talking about those collaboration, communication thing. And what we are doing at BIM Object is to get the communication between the planners, the architects, and the manufacturers done, because many informations of the products getting loose or getting lost when you're just watching around prospects and brochures and I don't know. The communication between the planners, the architects, and the manufacturers is quite important to get a more or a better result at the end of the building process. So this is just wanted to add something.
All right, so again, the importance of collaboration, and as you already touched upon, construction material manufacturers will be integrated into the planning process a lot sooner. But Sven, what I'd like to ask you is how will this affect how construction material producers sell their products over the next couple of years? Will they have to seek different platforms or new? Will their products be integrated directly into planning tools? How do you envision that changing over the next 10 years?
Well, as Johannes just mentioned it, there will certainly be a change with regards to the business development and the sales process. The material suppliers, you need to get much closer into an interaction with the planner, with the architect. You need to obviously promote your products not only as a craftsman, but convince architects that you have the right product going forward with the right specifications, so that the architect is already kind of somehow defining his tender documents in a certain way that your specs fit best to this tender. And that also means that you need to be available in those platforms, in BIM objects or elsewhere, with your digitalized products, which is, you said it's 5D. At the end of the day, it's more than just a digital, a 3D CAD design. It contains product information, it contains pricing information, it contains even information about how to maintain and service these products over the next 50 years, because after the BIM, after the construction phase, as I mentioned before, it goes into the BMS, into the facility management phase. Those are the two main steps you need to do, and make sure that you are present, because if you are not present in those platforms that Jan is using in his projects, you're simply locked out of part of the market. So your market is shrinking. And this is already happening today. So that's the urgency we try to bring over, even though it's only a small portion of the total market, but it's strongly developing. And if you're not present today, you might have the last mover disadvantage and might be completely away from this whole segment, because others are positioning themselves quicker already today.
All right, so those are some of the risks that you touch upon. What are the other risks or challenges when it comes to implementing BIM? And again, I think for our audience it would be great to perhaps focus specifically on construction material producers. What's at stake for them? Or are there risks for them? It's so great,
Yeah,
everybody should just,
it's very
there's no risk.
I think the risk is that you put a lot of money and investments into trying to get on board with BIM, and you take a wrong approach. I think that is what will most easily kill any endeavor in this matter. And as I said from the beginning, BIM is not an easy thing to do. It's very challenging, and it's very difficult to understand where we should start and where to stop. We see that with all of our clients, they have very big demands and say, this is what we all want in our project. And I think only through communication and collaboration with the industry, you'll figure out what parts of these goals that you set for yourself are actually viable, which parts of the information you want to create is important for you, and how to position yourself you cannot do that independently of your market. So since BIM is something that focuses on collaboration, making a decision of how to enter that market or how to reposition yourself in that market requires you to focus on collaboration and see how you can make sure or try to figure out how your information that you generate is currently used and how it could be used better. Because the only way to get into a collaboration is creating an advantage for your client, for the people that use your information. So BIM is all about information and collaboration. I think the main change, and that's maybe the difference between when we shifted from drawings on the board and went to CAD, that was digitizing, making a drawing digital. And what we're doing now is digitalization. So we structure the information, we make sure that it's computer interpretable. Maybe you can compare BIM to, or the introduction to BIM, or to understand that to Word and a typewriter. If you give someone who has always worked with a typewriter, the old-fashioned way, Word, and they start typing their document, and you tell them make a table of contents, they will actually type the table of contents in BIM, in Word. And that is not very helpful. If you ask a modern person to make a table of contents, this person will know to search for the functionality, create a table of contents, and in his text, or in the creation of his information, he will know that he needs to make the computer understand what he's doing. So once he's highlighting the text, he's not highlighting the text, making it bold and italic, and say, okay, this is a headline, because then he knows the computer won't know and won't be able to create a table of contents. So what we're doing in BIM is structuring this information, understanding that we need templates, standards, and that we need to let go of the idea that information is just some big pool of zeros and ones, because that's digitalized information. We need to find ways to structure it so that functions, so for example, create a table of contents or create a table of references, work. So we need to teach our computer basically how we structure information. And that's a very fundamental part. If you are trying to start doing BIM as producers, you need to think about what is the information I have available, who needs to use it. So that's the function, what are they going to do? Make a table of contents. And think of how do I structure this information in a way that a computer, not a person, can help them do that. And the computer doesn't think semantically, and that's the big problem. It doesn't interpret. It does exactly what you tell it to do.
Well, why don't you, sorry, do you want to add to that?
I just wanted to tell another, maybe a risk for you as a product manufacturers. When you decide to start BIMing, you invest money for that. You develop BIM objects. You might invest money for publishing on a portal like BIM object is one. And after that point, what are you doing with that? So what you're getting is a new marketing and sales channel. And I can see it from some manufacturers that they invest that money, and then they do not work with those data they receive from that channels, right? So actually they develop some objects, then they publish it, invest not too less money, and then they don't work with those information. So if you start providing BIM objects and providing it on a portal and getting analytics from the actually download numbers, you have to be aware that you have to work with those data, otherwise you won't get any revenue from that. So this is, I think, one risk I would tell. If you start BIMing as a manufacturer, you have to be aware that you have to change your structure in sales and marketing a bit. So you have to be aware about that numbers you get.
All right, well, before I open the floor to questions from our audience, that was some good advice for construction material producers. Any further advice for construction material producers who want to start BIMing from perhaps a strategic point of view?
Well, there are maybe two things that are more general, which is a more general advice on digital strategies that are being executed in all different areas of our business models. The problem that I see is that many, not only material suppliers, across the piece companies are basically reluctant to really move. They all listen to stories and real stories about what is happening, but they're reluctant to move because they don't really know how to approach it. Our recommendation is always start. Even if you walk into the wrong direction, digital strategy execution is about trial and error. It's about starting to walk and at a certain point in time, as early as possible, realize you walk into the wrong direction and then you basically change this direction. Certainly you should not start without really thinking, switch on your brain, clear. Some analysis in the beginning makes sense. That's what we benefit from as consultant. We are supporting these types of players, help them analyze the initial situation, help them analyze the customer situation and the demand in the market. But it's important that you don't plan too long, but it's about trial and error, which is again a paradigm change, a cultural change in companies, especially in Switzerland and Germany, where doing mistakes and correcting them is not necessarily well accepted. And the second thing is, and that goes in the direction that Jans just said, we always call it the moonshot. Think about a significant improvement of your business model driven by BIM, driven by a digitalization of your product data, which is a basis to do some much more with it than just selling these products. You have data available, you can generate new services around these data, either by becoming the spider in the web, the marketplace operator at a certain point in time, where you basically say, I don't sell concrete, which is a global market outside of China of $3 billion annually, but I try to approach the whole construction material market and try to generate 10% of this volume across my platform and get 0.3% of commission from it. It will be a much higher EBIT and company valuation if you translate that into share prices at the end of the day, or you just find anything in between. And there are many opportunities to further develop your business model and benefit from this digital trend earlier than your competitors.
So, ladies and gentlemen, now it's your turn. If you have any questions or comments or things on your mind, yes. Do we have a microphone in the audience? No, you can have mine.
Yeah, one question or comment to Mr. Sieten. You said by using BIM, the material decision moves from the craftsman to the designer. And I really doubt this.
Planner. Yeah.
Or the planner, but I really doubt this. The planner, the architect, normally they don't have a clue of material properties. So most of the people in this room, they offer liquid applied products, sealants or self-leveling underlayments and something like this. And this is anyway difficult to put it in as an object. And how should the designer or the planner decide which product do I choose now at the final end? Every sealant can do the job, but the craftsman should do the decision which one. So probably the product should be present, yes, it is in the libraries, but I doubt that the decision is made there.
I'm not competent enough to answer exactly your question based on your specific product group. If you look at HVAC products, if you look at sanitary products, even if you look at facets, companies I work for, material producers I work for, this decision is continuously moving to the planner. And I don't know whether, Jan, you are involved in that much stronger as I am, because I look at it from a theoretical point of view, and you are doing it. Is that right? Is that happening at Zublin, at Strabag, or not?
It is right, and maybe I can also give you a more concrete example for why also liquid apply. There's a lot of things we don't model, right? Because it doesn't make sense to model. For example, how stuff is glued together, we don't model, but it is important in some decisions. And that's why I always say don't focus on the product too much, focus on the decisions that need to be made based on the information that you have in your product. And that's the quality. Yes, currently designers are not equipped with the knowledge to decide. But that is exactly the problem we have in our industry, and that is what we need to change, because that means we have decoupled process chains, that are not linked to each other. And that's exactly what we're saying. We're super fragmented, and there is very, very specific high-quality knowledge in the lowest chains, and they don't get up the stream to the people who decide on yes or no to use this material. BIM would allow us to better represent this information, better support this decision of you choosing a specific material. We are talking in the industry about the last, 30 years about cradle-to-cradle processes, and we can't implement them. Why? Because we don't have the information that is necessary to make a proper decision. We talk about cradle-to-grave, that we can't. Because there is not sufficient information, and even if there is information, we have no way to efficiently gather all the information at the right point in time where the decision is being made. And that is our challenge, that is our problem. So maybe I won't model it, I completely agree, but that's not what BIM is about. BIM is not about models, I tried to convey the entire presentation. It's about this information, and maybe your product will be specified as a requirement in the beginning. We need something that will allow us to go cradle to cradle, and then when the craftsman looks and says, oh, I need a material that allows for that, then he can choose that. So I agree with you that not all decisions are moved upstream, but the information that allows decisions to be made downstream needs to be upstream as well. So maybe that answers your question. Do you have? Okay.
Maybe
I'm fully convinced.
maybe I just add something. You as a manufacturer produces maybe a part of a bigger system or a bigger composite, right? So what we are doing at BIM Object, we are providing product assemblies or composites of different building materials. And then I would say that architects will plan with composites. Maybe they decide for a certain surface in a parking garage or something like that, and they choose a system for that. And then within this composite or within this system, your products will be mentioned as well. So with all the information, with all the technical and specifications. So I would say, it's not that that you have to think I'm just doing a part of a composite or something like that. Actually, you need to in building information modeling. Yeah, when we speak about BIM, it's actually most of that. It's about the eye in BIM, right? About the information. So I guess every single product can be useful in a really good design and building planning process, right?
There's another question right over here.
There seemed to be a contradiction between both of you, what you said, but I don't think so. Because you said that the architects are actually deciding based on the specs that are in, and you said, no, it's the craftsmen, it's the people on the ground, yeah, who making the decisions more or less. Could it be that we're talking about more or less about auxiliary products in terms of sealants to do the assembly, and the auxiliary products are not so much in the focus on the architect side. The architect takes care of the primary materials, the real stuff from this point of view. To be a little bit provocative. So our business is it a second tier auxiliary business which is not in the first focus?
That might to a certain degree be, but what Johannes just said is basically that the auxiliary products are being incorporated into a tier 1 product, into a component or a system, and those systems are basically designed based on specifications. And ideally, and that would be my advice to an auxiliary product supplier, the architects define the specifications for these auxiliary products in a way that your specific product fits best to the specification, so that the tier 1 supplier it basically has to draw back on your product, not your competitor's product to a certain degree. What we also see, and it partly goes into the same category maybe, that you have in the cementitious material area, in concrete areas, where you have to a certain degree standardized products because you have a certain amount of defined cement types and concrete as well, which you use for the different application fields. So limited opportunity for the different cement players to really differentiate because they all produce according to the same standards. Nevertheless, they are actively trying to convince planners to go for Cemex, Lafarge, Holcim, Heidelberg, whatever, by concentrating their building material, their business development activities much stronger on the planner. So there is no objective benefit of product A versus competitor product, but they convince those architects by taking care of them, by training them, by giving them certain better product specifications that they can use in the planning process, by offering certain services around it, laboratory services, logistics, financing even to a certain degree for the owner of the construction at the end of the day. So this is how you can try to differentiate yourself from your competitors if you are more in a commodity auxiliary type of product segment, and a BIM platform helps you channeling this information again. As you said, it's always about information in a certain collaborative mode. Much better than if you just have to put your brochures on the table and you can't actually visit so many clients at the same time, architects at the same time, if you do that in a physical way.
Even if you provide your information of this product on a BIM portal or in a library, you're able to adjust any specifications if something changes maybe in a product or something like that quite easily, and the architects can update those objects during the design process. So you are aware that you are aware that there are no obsolete data outside of your company, right? I totally agree that the architects, I'm an architect as well, might decide more about surfaces and furnitures and I don't know. But if the mindset changed, and this is all about it, that in the planning industry, the mind has to change when it comes to BIM in the next years. I guess that the architects will decide more and more other things as they did until today, right? So I think there is many change about in that in the next year. So I guess maybe that this will be decided from the architect as well later on.
We have another question on this side of the room.
Thanks. I fully support the BIM topic, and in the company where I work, we also have our own software for the products we have it available. What I don't get, and especially with listening to all three of you, is where's the holdback. So if you tell me, and you were very convincing, we need to pay 90% of the cost for the building, it might actually be faster, it has less errors, so big construction companies using it should have a bidding advantage, should have a marketing advantage. So why does it need support at all? Yeah, if I take your chainsaw example, yeah, no company with wood loggers would stand on the market today if they would solely use the axe. So what is the missing point that this is actually evolving itself?
I think it's what Mrs. Simon already pointed out. It's the cultural shift that we need in our industry. It's people accepting it, trying it, because for a lot of challenges we don't have solutions, and we need to try, invent, go out there and see how we can manage it. I can't go on a project and say this and this and this is all what I will deliver you on site in BIM, because I'm not sure that I can deliver the service because I'm not doing it myself anymore. I'm starting to collaborate with the planners, with the architects. I'm trying to build very intricate collaborations with the MEP planners, with the facade planners, with my subcontractors, and therefore I offer a service that is interlaced with the capabilities of my project team as a whole. So I need to look at the project, see what people are involved in this specific project, what are their capabilities, what is their enthusiasm, because BIM is not ready. If they expect Formula 1, I mean that's how it's promoted right now. It's super awesome, and will save everything and make everything better. But I think currently the streets, yeah, the digital streets, the roads, how can we get from point A to B? We haven't gotten there. So maybe this Formula One BIM is awesome, and we want a super BIM. We just put back in or we pin up on the wall, and we try the Land Rover. That's not as fancy, but we'll get you across. And there will be some bumps, and that's what scares a lot of people. There are no roads. There is a bump, and then they say, oh, something went wrong on the project. We need to fix it. So you need a very specific kind of people that is comfortable facing this much ambiguity in an industry that, from a profit margin perspective, is so highly constrained that room for error is quite slim. And I think that is what is holding a lot of people back. This internal drive to say, yes, let's start something that we don't really know how it's going to work out. But if I don't try, if I wait for standards, or if I wait for someone else to tell me how this works, I'm probably already too late.
Maybe I add something. I think the change from the 3D CAD or two and a half D CAD or BIM something is the change from 3D CAD to BIM is actually the same what we had 20 years ago when the architects changed from drawing by hand to drawing by 2D CAD. I just a little story. My father had actually an architectural practice with 30 workers there, and he decided in 1992 to implement 2D CAD in his office, and all the other architects said, "Oh, come on, he's destroying our profession, right? Our architectural profession is something nice and drawing by hand, and I don't know." My father was thinking, I'm building hospitals, and I want to be faster in my drawing and not destroying a plan by changing everything 3 times or 4 times. So he started drawing with 2D CAD, and 6 or 7 years later, all the architects had a CAD system in their offices. So I guess the change is actually the same what we had 20 years ago with drawing by hand to 2D CAD, and now we have to change from 3D to BIM. I think it takes a while.
Yeah, but it's still, I mean, for me it's still open. Why did other industries improve efficiency over the last 80 years significantly? Why did we not see an efficiency improvement in the construction industry? We often discuss that internally. Is it because it's a very fragmented industry? Is it because at the end of the day the installers at the construction site have a very strong influence on the industry? Maybe those are 2 reasons. On the other hand, we obviously try to convince you guys as part of the industry with these types of events to change your mindsets, to influence the industry and help increasing efficiency in the industry, which we need to have. In Switzerland we have a huge problem. We have enough volume. Hopefully you can confirm that as far as you come from Switzerland. Construction volume driven by lower interest rates, driven by the need of pensions to invest money in real estate, etc. pp. But at the same time we have a very strong Swiss franc, Austrian, German, French, Italian suppliers come into the market, destroy our prices. The margins that are earned in Switzerland are not as high as you would expect in such a wonderful situation where growth is good. So we need to increase efficiency as a consequence. We need to push things like BIM and other ways of improving efficiency, obviously. So there is certain pressure, but it still doesn't get as quick as I would expect it if you take the benefits into account, which are there, as Jan has confirmed from a real construction experience, not from a theoretical one.
Maybe a challenge, an additional challenge that we in the construction industry have as opposed to other industries is that we create a product that is unique this one time. We produce it, we design it, and the majority of knowledge that is gained on creating this product is useless for the next. And there are other industries, they have a lot of budget to create a product. They produce it 1 million times, and they fine-tune the design to create a better end product. In construction, we just create it once. We don't have a large factory where we create houses and then we ship them to site. So we really do it on site. And I think we have a lot of these complexities, additional complexities within our industry, our fragmentation, our market, our relative market power, that we always, the first project we design is the product we build and we don't use it the next time. But that is also where BIM will bring some change, because if I digitalize my information, we will safeguard this information for future projects, and thereby create some database that gives me key point indicators on am I going right or wrong. But this is a process that takes very, very, very long to achieve. So I think that is, BIM is not easy.
And I think that's a really good moment to end it there. So thank you very, very much, Jan Lodewijks, Johannes Settel, and Sven Siepen, gentlemen, for your perspectives, and to our audience for your very critical but very good questions. Let's give everyone a round of applause.